So the Indiana Fever did not look good without Caitlin Clark. I guess that would be an understatement. Look, I mean, it's not that surprising to see the drop off for the Fever without Clark. This Caitlin Clark effect, if you will, because so often what's talked about is her impact on interest or economics, but all of that is based on her abilities as a basketball player, and her abilities as a basketball player were sorely missing for the Fever against the Mystics, where her playmaking abilities, especially, the team only had 15 assists. She averages over 9 a game. Their points per game were 11 lower than normal, and they got a bunch of buckets in garbage time. They had 0 fast break points, which is unimaginable if Clark were out there. And, aside from the logo threes and all that, her ability to set others up was absent. And once again, her value was reflected by Clark not being out on the floor. But there's really no need for crash outs, I would say. It's always going to be a struggle for the Fever without Caitlin Clark. She's the greatest offensive engine the sport has ever seen. So it would be naive to believe that they were going to come in and look great without Clark. What you're hoping for is treading water a little bit. And they still have an opportunity to gut out some wins with this stretch of schedule because they've got the sun and the sky coming up. The Mystics are the best team they're playing in this stretch, who, by the way, are impressive. Sonia Citron is really impressive as a rookie, the way she's able to move the floor. She's one of those players. It looks like both her and Kiki Iriafen, players who are better at the pro level than at the college level. But, I mean, she just looks like the prototypical swing player, does Citron. And she got up and down the floor and hurt Indiana in that way. And Kiki really bullied them, and she's been putting up double-doubles and having a really big season overall. So impressive display by the Mystics, who, if they had Georgia Amore, would be a very interesting team. The loss of Amore really hurt them, but Sykes has played well as well. And in this one, it was Iriafen with 16 points and 8 boards, Citron with 13 points, 7 boards. But on the Fever side of things, another startling statistic is 5 shots for Aaliyah Boston, who I actually thought played very well in this game, but she only got 5 shots because Clark spoon feeds her the ball a lot. They play a lot of 2-man game, a lot of pick and roll. And that was completely out the window in this one. Then there's Kelsey Mitchell, who was just 4 of 16 from the floor. Hasn't been a great start to the season for Kelsey whatsoever. She's not a natural playmaker, but you need her to be a much more efficient scorer than that, especially given that she's undersized on the defensive side of the ball. So in order to make up for any shortcomings defensively, you need her to really shine as a scorer and putting the ball in the bucket. But Sophie Cunningham was 0-3 from the floor in 20 minutes. Didn't give you anything. If you're the Fever, just 2 points. Just 2 points for Sophie. Lexi Holt played pretty well. And Aaliyah Boston played pretty well. Natasha Howard had some good stats. 5 turnovers, though. Only got 17 minutes of burn. Sydney Colson's just not good enough. 30. She can't be playing 31 minutes. I mean, even with Clark. But the problem is they don't have another point guard on the roster. Really, they don't have another natural point guard on the roster. But it's going to be Struggleville if Sydney Colson is handling the rock for prolonged periods of time or trying to initiate the offense. There was one play where Boston actually had a seal and she didn't get her the ball. And I'm thinking to myself, you have to get her the ball in those situations when she has the advantage, because the other team is going to allocate all their resources to stopping Aaliyah Boston. So when there is an opportunity, you got to get her the rock. And then of course, the fans are going to turn on the coach right after a game like that. The fans are going to blast the coach, and there's already been frustration bubbling under the surface with Stephanie White. And she played, more of an ugly brand of basketball, if you will, a grinded out brand of basketball with the Connecticut Sun. And of course, she clearly wanted to move away from just a offense where Clark was the sun and everything was orbiting around her. and a lot of fans disagree with that approach. Stephanie White did talk post game about one aspect of things that's sort of interesting because this has been a topic that's come up a bunch, which is physicality and the way the game is played. And this is what she had to say about officiating.
I don't know. I don't feel like there's any more intentionally rough play than there is in any basketball game, men's or women's, really. Obviously, I mean, obviously, I think we can get better in certain areas as far as how we call the game, consistency with how we call the game, protecting. We've been made a real point to protect airborne shooters on the perimeter. I don't think we do as good of a job at that near the rim. It's are we going to say that we want a free flowing offensive game, or are we going to have tough grind out physical games? And whatever way it is, the players will adjust and coaches will adjust. But we can't have it be one way one quarter, another way another quarter. So I don't think collectively as a whole the league has to step in and do something. I just think that there has to be some improvements in certain areas.
What would be the main one, you think, if you could just pick one top?
Are we trying to get me fined again? Because I did
Let's
just
move
get
on to the
fined.
next question. Let's go next question.
I did just get fined. So, Stephanie White obviously stood up for her team and against the officials after the Liberty game. But I agree with her statement there. I don't think anything has been overly out of line physical. I think teams are doing what they can get away with. And of course, you want to be physical with Caitlin Clark and make things rough on Caitlin Clark. I never thought anything was particularly out of pocket. My issue is how are you going to allow her to get held and grabbed and mauled and then call ticky-tack fouls on the other end? Or not call the fouls that then put the other team in foul trouble, put the Fever in the bonus, and put Caitlin Clark at the free throw line. Or not protect the landing space so she's not getting three free throws or doesn't have to worry about protecting herself and possibly hurting herself coming down. And Caitlin Clark was seen on the bench in that coaching role, of course, if you whatever you want to call it. But as much as that was spun as an opportunity by Stephanie White, obviously the Fever need her out there on the floor as a player. I mean, there's nothing that can make up for her presence in the lineup, and that was evident by her absence. The good news is she's still skipping around out there. Still looks like she's moving just fine. You can see her joining the team huddle there. So I really don't think it's worth any crash outs. This is not a great basketball team without Caitlin Clark. Certainly not a contender. Maybe not a playoff team. Probably not a playoff team without Caitlin Clark. But doesn't mean they can't get a win against the Sky or get a win against the Sun. And it doesn't mean the season is going to fall apart because they were always going to need Caitlin Clark in the lineup. That was obvious. And I'm not really going to judge the coach on how they look without Caitlin Clark because that doesn't really make sense. Speak out of one side of your mouth. Caitlin Clark's the most important thing. And then out the other side of the mouth, the coach sucks because they can't play without Caitlin Clark. Sometimes things are kind of simple.